A billion-dollar skyscraper isn't actually held together by just like steel and concrete.
Right.
If you look really closely at how these colossal structures actually get built, you realize they're held together by PDFs, rigid communication flowcharts, and sequence numbers.
Which is completely counterintuitive, right? I mean, when we see massive cranes swinging over a city skyline or we hear, the roar of heavy machinery, we naturally assume that building something monumental is just this exercise in raw physical force and logistics.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the Deep Dive, customized specifically for you. Today, we have a stack of source material that, well, it reveals the secret nervous system of global mega projects.
It really does.
We're looking at the contract administration requirements based on the FIDIC Red Book 2017 edition. Now, AITIC is essentially the gold standard rulebook. It's used globally for international construction contracts.
Yeah, standard practice everywhere.
And the document we're diving into today is, on its surface, an incredibly dense instruction manual for how the players on a construction site are actually allowed to talk to each other.
And at first glance, I mean, it is a towering stack of bureaucratic forms and administrative red tape.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the kind of document that usually never leaves the site office. It rarely sees the light of day.
I have to admit, when I first looked at this, my eyes sort of glazed over. I was like, what is this?
Totally understandable.
But our mission today is to decode this. Because when you stop looking at it as just a list of chores, you realize this isn't just red tape. We're going to show you how this rigid, seemingly dry system is actually a brilliant masterclass in human psychology, conflict resolution, and basically preventing an army of thousands of workers from descending into total chaos.
Because to really grasp how powerful this is, you have to imagine the sheer scale of the environment we're talking about here.
Right.
On a major infrastructure project, say like an international airport terminal or a hydroelectric dam, you have hundreds of subcontractors.
Thousands of laborers.
Exactly. Thousands of laborers, multiple design firms, and literally billions of dollars on the line.
So before anyone can pour a single drop of concrete, you have to establish the rules of the game.
You really do.
You have to lock down exactly who is allowed to speak for whom. And this document does not mess around with that setup.
Yeah.
We see forms for the right access to site, the appointment of the engineer, and the contractor's representative.
And notice the mechanism behind those forms. Every single document is tracked in what they call the EDMS.
Right, the electronic data management system.
Exactly. The contract mandates that this system is the single source of truth for the entire project. What's fascinating here is how it eliminates ambiguity.
The EDMS is like the omniscient brain of the project, but I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure, go for it.
Why do we need a formally tracked document with a rigid sequence code just to say, hey, you can step onto the dirt now? I mean, isn't that a bit much?
Well, think about what happens if you rely on a handshake on day one. Let's say the developer verbally tells the contractor, the site is yours, start digging.
Okay.
But there's still a local utility company finishing up some power lines on the north end of the dirt.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah. The contractor brings their bulldozers in, but they have to sit idle for 3 weeks waiting for the utility guys to leave. Suddenly, they are bleeding millions of dollars in equipment rental fees.
Wow. And then the lawsuit starts. The contractor says, you told me the site was ready.
Right.
And the developer says, I told you the south end was ready. It's an immediate he said, she said nightmare.
Precisely. In a world of information overload, having a single trackable EDMS system is the only way to maintain a single source of truth. The EDMS physically prevents that he said, she said scenario.
Because it's all in writing.
Exactly. If the developer issues the formal right of access form through the system, it explicitly details the date, the specific coordinates of access, and any limitations. If a conversation happens on a site walk, or over WhatsApp, legally speaking, it simply does not exist.
Wow. So you are building the communication architecture before you build the physical architecture.
That's a great way to put it.
It's essentially like it's an airtight prenuptial agreement for a multi-million-dollar construction marriage.
Yes.
You are legally defining the exact parameters of the relationship before the actual stress of the building process begins.
That is the perfect way to look at it. You're setting the rules of engagement.
Okay, so the players are on the board.
Right.
The EDMS is online. But how does the day-to-day work actually happen? Because, no massive project goes exactly to plan.
Never.
Let's imagine you are the contractor out there on site. You're excavating a foundation, and suddenly the backhoe hits something solid.
Always a bad day when that happens.
Right? It's a massive underground water pipe right where a load-bearing concrete wall is supposed to go.
Yeah.
So you have a huge problem. You need to ask a question.
And this brings us to what functions as the central nervous system of the project, the technical query, or TQ.
Yes, the TQ process.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the way this source material forces you to handle a TQ is wild to me.
It's very structured.
Yeah, because if I'm the contractor, I can't just open my email and type, hey, we found a pipe in the way, what do we do? Instead, I have to log into the EDMS and pull up a very specific form.
The TQ form.
Right. I have to fill out Part A, and I have to literally check specific boxes classifying the nature of my question. Like I have to categorize it as essential versus non-essential, urgent versus routine.
And most importantly, clarification versus deviation.
Yes. Only then can I send it to the engineer to fill out Part B. But, and here's my pushback, isn't it total overkill to require a specific Part A and Part B PDF or Word doc form just to ask a question?
It definitely feels that way.
Why not just send a quick email or text to the engineer? Just say, hey, pipe in the way. Can we just shift the wall 2 feet to the left?
It sounds like bureaucratic overkill until you understand how informal communication absolutely destroys budgets.
How so?
Well, imagine the engineer gets that quick text message while they're sitting in a loud airport terminal. They glance at it, they trust the contractor, and they just text back, yeah, sure, shift it.
I mean, that kind of quick-fire decision-making happens all the time in normal office jobs.
It does. But here, answering a quick text might accidentally approve a technical deviation that costs millions or compromises safety.
Wait, really? Just shifting a wall?
Oh, absolutely. Suddenly, the roof needs more steel to compensate for that shifted structural load. That text message didn't check the budget. It didn't analyze the structural integrity. It just created a $3 million problem that isn't documented anywhere.
Ah, okay. So by forcing the contractor to check those boxes, especially having to choose between clarification or deviation, you're forcing them to evaluate the contract scope before they even hit send.
Exactly. The checkboxes force critical thinking before a question is even asked. It makes the contractor pause and say, wait, is moving this wall a deviation from the blueprints we agreed on?
It slows down the reaction time.
Yes, specifically to prevent a catastrophic multi-million-dollar mistake.
Which makes perfect sense when you put it like that. But that brings us to the snowball effect. Let's say it is a deviation. The wall has to move.
Right.
A simple technical query about a pipe has now morphed into a change in the physical scope of the project, which triggers a variation.
And variations are where things get incredibly tense, because changes in scope mean changes in time and changes in money.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When money is on the line, conflict is basically guaranteed.
Oh, 100%.
But before we look at how the contract handles that conflict, we need to understand why they're arguing in the first place. The variation forms in the EDMS require you to select the pricing type to change things like a lump sum or cost plus.
Which fundamentally alters the motivations of the people involved. It's all about incentives.
How so?
Well, if the variation is priced as cost plus, the developer pays the contractor for all the materials and labor used, plus a percentage fee for profit.
Okay.
Under that model, the contractor has zero incentive to be efficient. I mean, the more they spend, the more profit they make.
But if it's a lump sum, the contractor agrees to fix that pipe problem for a flat fee of, say, $50,000.
Right.
So if it ends up costing them $80,000, they eat the loss.
Okay.
So in that scenario, the contractor is highly motivated to do it as cheaply as possible, which, might make the developer worry about the quality of the work.
Exactly. The financial friction is just baked into the situation. So when the contractor says, moving this wall will cost an extra $1 million, and the engineer looks at it and says, no, that should only cost you $200,000.
You have a major dispute.
A massive dispute.
And this source document has a breathtakingly rigid system for handling that fight. I mean, it's essentially a legally binding flowchart for an argument.
That's a very accurate way to describe it.
You are literally forced to follow a sequence of paperwork to disagree. You can't just yell at each other.
No, you definitely cannot. It starts with the engineer formally issuing a consultation notice.
A consultation notice form. Not just a calendar invite for a meeting, but a formal notice with the sequence code.
Right. The parties are legally required to sit down and try to reach an agreement. If they agree, beautiful, they file a notice of parties agreement.
But if they can't agree,
then the flowchart pushes them to the next step. The engineer acts almost like an initial judge, and issues a notice of engineer's determination.
So the engineer makes a ruling on the money and the time.
Yes. But humans don't always accept a ruling they feel is unfair.
No, they don't. If you're the contractor and you just lost out on $800,000, you're going to be furious. But this is the part I love. The contract doesn't care about your anger.
Not one bit.
If the contractor wants to fight the ruling, they're required to open the EDMS and file a notice of dissatisfaction.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, think about the physical act of doing that. You can't just storm into the site office, pound your fists on the table, and threaten to walk off the job.
Right.
I mean, you can, but it carries zero legal weight. To officially disagree, you have to sit down at a computer. You have to pull up the correct form.
You have to explicitly cite the original consultation notice.
Exactly. You have to reference the exact contract subclauses you believe were violated, and you must attach documentary evidence.
It literally takes hours of work to be officially mad. By the time you finish filling out the notice of dissatisfaction, your adrenaline is gone.
It forces rationality. This structure is designed to de-escalate emotion. By forcing disagreements into specific forms, it turns heated, visceral anger into objective data points that can be reviewed later by an arbitration board if necessary.
It forces you to build a logical case instead of throwing a tantrum. But all of this arguing and consulting and form filling, it's all happening while the clock is ticking.
Right.
Every single day a construction project is delayed, costs somebody a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. The ticking clock is the ruthless heartbeat of this entire document. If these disagreements involve major money or schedule delays, they escalate into formal claims.
And the timelines mandated for claims are absolutely brutal.
They really are.
This is where the rigidity gets very real for you, the listener. Let's look at the rules for a notice of claim. The flowchart dictates that a notice of claim must be filed in less than 28 days from the event that caused it.
And we need to be very clear here. That is not a rough guideline. In contract law, that is often what's called a condition precedent. It is a contractual trapdoor.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the contractor? The flowcharts show these strict ticking clocks, like 28 days for a claim. Let's put the listener in the shoes of the project manager.
Okay.
A freak monsoon hits your site. The foundation is flooded. You have pumps running 24/7. Your crews are working triple shifts in the mud just to salvage the concrete pours.
It's a total chaos.
Exactly. You are exhausted. You're losing $50,000 a day, and you're entirely focused on solving the physical emergency. If a contractor is busy actually building the building and forgets to file a notice of claim form on day 29, does the paperwork just eat their money?
In short, yes.
Wait, really?
Yes. In these contracts, failing to follow the administrative flowchart can literally void your rights. If you fail to push that form through the EDMS within that 28-day window, the contract dictates that the employer is discharged from all liability. Your right to claim that money or that extra time is voided.
The door slams completely shut.
Completely shut.
Wow. So the concrete matters, the pumps matter, but the timestamp on a PDF matters just as much. I have to ask, though, isn't that incredibly harsh? If the contractor genuinely suffered a massive flood, why should a single day's delay on a form wipe out millions of dollars of legitimate costs?
It feels draconian, I know, but the philosophy behind it is crucial for managing massive risks. It encourages proactive project management over reactive lawsuits.
Oh.
Well, the contract enforces that 28-day rule to force the problem out into the open immediately. The developer, the one paying for all of this, needs to know about a potential delay or cost overrun right now so they can mitigate it.
Ah, the right to mitigate.
Exactly. If the developer knows on day 2 that the foundation flood is going to cost an extra $2 million, they might choose to redesign the roof to save that money elsewhere.
Right.
But if the contractor hides the problem or just forgets to report it and then suddenly drops a $2 million claim on the developer's desk 6 months later, the developer has been robbed of their chance to adapt. The strict deadline kills the culture of reactive end-of-project lawsuits.
It forces everyone to keep their eyes on the dashboard, constantly. And speaking of the end of the project, the clock eventually ticks down to completion.
Which, unsurprisingly, is governed by its own gauntlet of forms.
Naturally, you don't just hand over the keys to a skyscraper. The contractor issues a notice of completion. Then the engineer evaluates the work and has a choice.
They can issue a notice of rejection, which literally includes a section for mandatory corrective actions.
Or, if things are mostly good, they issue a taking over certificate.
But even that taking over certificate isn't a clean break. The form specifically allows the engineer to list minor outstanding works. It formally transitions the project into the defect notification period.
So you're essentially in a warranty phase.
Right, tracking defects with yet another set of forms until you finally reach the holy grail, the performance certificate, confirming every single contractual obligation is fulfilled.
Okay, I want to take a step back for a second. We have technical queries, variations, consultation notices, determinations, claims with 28-day trapdoors, notices of dissatisfaction, taking over certificates.
It's a lot.
It's a massive amount of data. With all these forms, checkboxes, and ticking clocks, how do the actual human beings on site keep track of it all without losing their minds?
Well, they rely on the visual translation of all this data. The requirements detail the use of a contract management dashboard report.
Ah. It says here the dashboard uses visual histograms to track the numbers, like a bar chart for pending versus closed technical queries, a bar chart for variations, a bar chart for claims.
Exactly. It's a way to take the temperature of the project at a single glance. If you look at the dashboard and you see the histogram for pending technical queries suddenly spiking in month 3, you know you have a massive problem.
It might be a flawed design blueprint causing confusion.
Or a communication bottleneck. But the data tells you to intervene before that spike turns into a cascade of delayed claims.
You're tracking the administrative health of the site as closely as the physical progress, which makes sense why they put so much emphasis on training the humans to use this system. They mandate an onboarding program for personnel.
Because you can't just drop an engineer into an environment where a late PDF costs $1 million and expect them to survive without a map. There has to be FIDIC contract training for key personnel.
Right. But this brings me to my absolute favorite part of this entire deep dive, the aha moment buried deep in the source text.
I was hoping you caught this.
It's fascinating. So the cover of this massive document clearly states, in big, bold letters, Red Book 2017 edition. Now let's clarify that for you, the listener. In the FIDIC universe, the Red Book is traditionally used for projects where the employer, the developer, provides the design and the contractor just builds it.
Correct. The employer takes the risk for the blueprints. If the design is flawed, the employer pays to fix it.
But there's another standard, the Yellow Book, which is typically used when the contractor is responsible for both designing and building the project.
Meaning the contractor takes the risk for the blueprints. If the design is flawed in a Yellow Book project, the contractor pays to fix it out of their own pocket. It's a massive shift in liability.
Exactly. So we have a document that proudly declares itself a Red Book project on the cover. But then you read Section 20.1 and Section 20.2 of the training requirements. They explicitly demand that key personnel, the project managers and the engineers, must have a high-level understanding and specific training in the FIDIC Yellow Book type contract.
Which is a glaring contradiction.
So I have to ask, did someone just casually copy-paste the wrong training requirement into a multi-million-dollar legal template? Or is something else going on here?
What's amazing is that this tiny quirk perfectly illustrates the chaotic reality of construction administration. On one hand, yes, it could absolutely be a copy-paste error.
Oh, typo.
Right, because these massive requirement documents are often stitched together from legacy templates. Someone updates the cover page to say Red Book, but forgets to update the training clause from their previous job, which, happened to be a Yellow Book project.
A simple formatting typo in a document that governs million-dollar liability traps.
Exactly. If that's true, it's a terrifying oversight. But there's another, perhaps more interesting possibility. Many modern mega projects are complex hybrids.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you might have a primarily Red Book contract where the employer designed the overarching structure, but there might be a specific, highly technical subsystem, like the HVAC routing, where the contractor is asked to take on the design responsibility.
An administrative plot twist. They need their key personnel to understand the Yellow Book mechanisms because they are secretly playing both games at once.
Precisely. But whether it's a careless typo or a hidden hybrid structure, it highlights something incredibly crucial. It illustrates exactly why meticulous QA/QC quality assurance and quality control on the project documents is just as vital as QA/QC on the actual concrete foundation.
Because if there is a contradiction in the rules of engagement on day one,
it is guaranteed to cause a multi-million-dollar dispute down the line.
wow. So let's briefly summarize how this seemingly dry administrative manual is actually this highly sophisticated framework. When we pull all these threads together, what looks like a soul-crushing list of chores, the sequence numbers, the TQ checkboxes, the rigorous flowcharts for disagreement, the brutal 28-day trapdoors, it's all designed to keep human error, forgetfulness, and especially explosive human emotion from derailing monumental physical achievements.
It proves that to build a skyscraper, you don't just need to control the physical steel, you have to control the communication. It is the invisible architecture that holds the visible architecture together.
That's incredibly well said. And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over that builds on our deep dive today. We've seen how these strict form-based communication protocols are the absolute best way to keep a massive construction project from collapsing into chaos. They force rationality. They turn visceral anger into trackable data.
Right.
Could we apply a similar framework to our own personal lives or our own workplace disagreements? Imagine how much time and emotional energy you would save if, instead of sending passive-aggressive emails to a coworker or silently fuming at a partner, you had to issue a formal consultation notice to cool down.
Oh, wow.
Imagine arriving at the next tense family dinner and handing over a notice of dissatisfaction, complete with supporting documentary evidence of why you're upset.
That would certainly change the dynamic of the holidays.
It sounds completely absurd, but maybe forcing ourselves to pause and check the clarification versus deviation boxes of our own emotions is exactly the kind of invisible architecture we all need.
It really makes you think about how we handle our own conflicts.
It really does. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep your paperwork filed and your mental dashboard updated.
See the link in the description for free PDF download. Also, watch our other construction scope videos. Thanks for watching, please subscribe, and see you next time.